Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Political No Brainer, the podcast where we move past winner takes all politics and into real conversation. I'm Jeff Rabinowitz, and this season we're bringing in voices from all sides to challenge assumptions, bridge divides, and build a better understanding of today's biggest issues. Well, let's get into it. Today I've got two of my favorite guests, Charlie Heinemann and Beth Burroughs, two very dear friends. We've been friends for nearly 30 years now, and this is what we do, friends getting together and trying to figure out what in the world is going on today, because there's a lot going on and not a lot's making sense, but I don't know that we'll make sense of it all. But so I just rolled into Donald Trump. I'm just going to start with this. Trump suggests he's above the law with an ominous Napoleon quote. So the quote was, I guess essentially it's like the Richard Nixon thing. If the president does it, it's not illegal. I guess essentially that was the quote. I can't seem to find it right now, but that was it. It's okay if I do it, but it's not okay. And Charlie having a legal background, myself and Beth having a sort of current events wonk background, it's just not okay. He's getting numerous judges to tell him to stop what he's doing, and he just doesn't stop it. So what's next?
Well, I've read a lot about that this week when they talk about, they bandy around the term constitutional crisis without a lot of definition. And I, myself included, and I found it helpful reading someone really talking about, the constitutional crisis arises when he refuses to listen to what the judges say, right? We get to the point where the judicial branch exercises their, correct authority, and the White House just goes, nah, we're gonna do it anyway. Because then, how do you enforce it? And Trump has quoted that. I don't know if Trump quoted it, but that term back from the Marbury versus Madison days of the judiciary has spoken. Let's see them enforce it. And it's truth, right? And he's the controls the military, and the executive branch has that authority. And so, if they just decide not to follow what the courts say, that becomes the problem, because we've existed on this assumption that everyone would at least play for the most part by the rules. And I think a lot of that was their idea going in, like, screw that. We're going to go in there and not play by the rules. We're going to do what we think is best, and that's it. That's going to be the end. And that's what they've done in this first month, right? That's exactly what they're saying. I saw an interesting thing just before we got on here. This guy was talking about his press secretary, the one with the giant cross hanging off her neck there, and her term fraud. She keeps talking about all this fraud that DOGE is finding. And the question none of the reporters should have asked her was, well, how are you defining fraud? How do you define fraud? Because what you're saying is they're finding programs that the president doesn't like. Well, it's not fraud.
No.
You could call it waste, because waste is, an interpretive term, but it's not fraud. Fraud is like intentionally deceiving people to get a benefit that you're not, supposed to be given. And that's not fraud. It's been, allocated by Congress. There's nothing fraudulent about it. Now, you can say it's wasteful and clean it up that way, but to go out there and use expressions like fraud over and over and over again, it's so disingenuous, and it's so insulting to people who've poured their lives into some of these programs. So I think that's a big part of it. It's they're going to decide what they don't like is not just something they want to change. It's illegal, right? It's fraudulent. And those are the terms they're using to express anything they don't agree with.
Well, it's funny that you say they call it fraud. Now, here's the process that we've all been, I guess Americans are sort of just used to. The process is simple like this, and it's not fraud, just like you said. It's a legislative process. It's been passed by the legislature. So you literally have a couple of steps here. Congressmen and women, and I think senators as well, can't raise money on Capitol Hill and federal office buildings. So they go across the street and they work the phones and they raise money. So if, for example, if one of their constituents say we want $50 million, now I think this was a bold-faced lie. I don't think this piece of legislation exists, but I'm just using it. $50 million. We want $50 million for condoms to go to Gaza, and one of their donors is the person that's going to supply those condoms. And the Republicans want some bill passed. They put that addendum in the bill, and Republicans agree to it to get that other vote they need to push it over the top. So there's nothing fraudulent about it. It's our process that's, like you said, it's wasteful, but both parties have agreed to it. Now you've got this guy Elon Musk saying, "I've uncovered $6 million going to Ukraine for drag show lessons or drag show performances," and they're calling it fraud. And it really doesn't matter if it's fraud or not. What it does is it ignites their conservative base. It gets their conservative base on board again. Do whatever you have to do. Even though we were once the ones that protected the Constitution, we're willing to ignore the Constitution to stop this madness because it goes against our faith, it goes against our beliefs, it goes against our. And so they're really good at what they're doing, but in the end, they're good at what they're doing by convincing people that they have to do it. Trump's saying it's okay if it's illegal because it's whether it's illegal or not. If the president does it, it's legal. That was sort of the Nixon logic. But and then you come into what you just said, this constitutional crisis, which is essentially that if the president doesn't listen to the judges, and he's made it clear he's not going to, and then we're going on the assumption that's going to get to the Supreme Court, and will he listen to them? And there's my question: is when he decides not even to listen to the Supreme Court, what's next? I mean, where do we go from here?
Yeah, well, there's your constitutional crisis, right? Because yeah, exactly. Where do we go from there? How do you enforce that
Yeah.
the executive branch if they're not going to go just on the faith in the system? Yeah, it's a huge question. I think we're certainly going to get there.
Because I don't. People are saying, "Oh, I think the Supreme Court's going to rule in favor of this crap." I say no, they're not going to rule in favor of this stuff. There's still, as much as there's 6 conservatives, there's still 3 that actually have a brain.
Well,
That
everything's going to hinge on the Barrett. Who's the Chief Justice?
Chief Justice Roberts.
Roberts. It's going to be Amy Coney Barrett and Roberts. Like they're going to be the effective swing that's left. That's the only swing that's left, because I think Gorsuch and certainly Alito and Thomas are. I don't think there's anything that they're going to stand up to with Trump. Maybe or Kavanaugh.
Kavanaugh, but I've seen Kavanaugh stand up to Trump. I just haven't seen it often enough to believe he will this time. They're saying Russia's running out of armor. They're literally saying Russia's been sending weapons to their guys on the front lines via donkey. And they're saying it's a better decision because if they take out a donkey, at least they're not taking out a mechanized vehicle and a team driving it. I mean, they're refurbishing tanks and stuff from World War II now that were in warehouses. I mean, Zelensky could turn this thing around. And I guess he can't without the U.S. support, but maybe he could.
No, he can't. It can't be done without our support. It just can't. They can't. And we're not. It's in terms of artillery. Like we're way behind in artillery, and just our on a technological side. I was reading Popular Science about this. I don't know how I got into that, but how far behind we are in terms of making the massive amounts of the regular shells that they use. That's such a big part of this war that we're not even at a level to crank it up like we did in World War II. So they need every bit that we can give them, and I don't think Europe, even if they're completely on the same page, I don't think Germany can take the lead, because it would be Germany, right? That would really take the lead in that, and I don't think they have the ability to do that. And I don't think their people will be down for it either, to be honest.
My hope was France was going to take the lead on it. At this point, without the U.S. in the equation, France was talking about sending in troops. I was hoping they would just say, you know what, we don't need the U.S.'s approval on this. We'll just go ahead and do it at this point, because manpower is an issue too in Ukraine.
Yeah, it's scary. It's a scary idea to not have the protection of the United States when it comes to dealing with Russia. And I mean, I'm not talking about just for Ukraine. I mean, for Europe in general, right? That's been there since the end of World War II. It's a hard thing to suddenly live without. I would be frightened to be a European living that close to Russia. I almost called it the Soviet Union. It practically isn't.
That's what he wants.
Yeah.
And Beth, you made an interesting post on Facebook about the Gaza Strip, which is something I would like you to go back into a little bit because I was reading it and I really liked it. But I mean, he's literally talking about taking ownership of the Gaza Strip, and then he retreated, of course. But I mean, it is. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, he made a I guess an inquiry about wanting to rebuild the Gaza Strip. I think his press secretary came out and said that they can't be profitable living in that rubble, but they're going to temporarily relocate the people living there, like in a Jordan or in another, country, but none of those countries are willing to actually take those people from the strip until or ever, from what I'm assuming. But he's saying no, it's going to be temporarily, but not really. He hasn't really made a decision, but we're going to go in there and build all these condos, seaside condominiums.
Seaside
Like
condos.
he he literally said he wants it to be it was the the Gaza or the in the Mediterranean or something like that. I forget. But no, he has no plans to rebuild for Gaza. He doesn't want them to be a profitable country. He wants to go in there and own Gaza and make condominiums so that he can make a profit. That's nothing to do with the people or rebuilding them. It's all about what he wants. Like we're gonna change Greenland to red, white, and blue land. Like, am I the only one that has heard that?
No.
No,
So
we've all heard it.
the guy that was actually submitted in Congress, right? Was it the Georgia?
I'm so
Congressman, right?
baffled at some of the things that are being. I can't tell what's true and what's not. Uh, but with the Hamas thing, yeah, I wondered how those people who were really upset with the way the Biden administration handled the Hamas war, how they're feeling about uh, Trump wanting to take ownership of the Gaza Strip, right in between, two countries.
Kicking 2 million people out of their land. I mean, of course, a guy who has no principle whatsoever would not be able to recognize the idea that you throwing something, even if you really did, which he doesn't have the ability to do, but that you throwing something glittery in front of them is going to make it okay for you to take their land, their ancestral land from them. Like they would rather be back among the rubble working to recreate it on their own than be given some, suburban dream of an enclave in Jordan or Qatar or something like that. It's just not realistic. But with Trump, you got to think you got to think of the mind of like an 11-year-old boy. I mean, that's about as far as he goes. Like I remember when we started seeing more and more footage. You don't see that much of Gaza pre-war, right? It is like it does. It is kind of shocking sometimes. You see how beautiful that sits there on that body of water.
Ocean front, yeah.
So, but someone like Trump, again, working through like an 11-year-old boy's mind is just like, oh, I like that. That's mine. And we got, who's going to stop us? We're going to say, we're not going to buy it. We're just going to have it and keep it. What does that mean? It means you're just going to take it. And, we're not going to need troops. Oh, of course not. You know what? You kick 2 million people off their land. Every baby born since then is going to be born a militant. So maybe at $50,000 in condoms, not such a bad idea because you're going to have a whole lot of enemies produced very quickly if you go in there and you really think you're going to turn it into the Mediterranean of the Middle East.
Oh, that's what it was. That's right.
The Mediterranean of the Middle East.
And we're going to do it without troops because, the Middle East is well known for just embracing U.S. involvement. And they're very cool with that.
It's just the nonsense out of, in 1 second, we're not helping Ukraine. We're not getting it. We don't want to send any funds to them. But then in the same breath, we're going to spend all this money to move these people out of the Gaza Strip and go in there and rebuild it just out of selflessness. You can't make those two opposing statements at the same press conference, and it's just ludicrous.
But he did, yeah. He literally said, "What? So they're going to be there? No. So they're not going to come back? No.
Right.
But you're not kicking them out? No. We're going to these beautiful places. They're going to want to go where we're sitting.
Yeah, we're going to temporarily relocate them permanently in some other country.
Countries that said they're not going to take them.
Yeah.
you
And
know,
what's more concerning is the millions and millions and millions of Americans who think this is just great ideas. This is just industry breaking incredible ideas. This is a billionaire developer coming up with another great plan.
yeah,
And there's no stopping it at that point. When you've got the support of all these millions and millions of Americans convinced that he's got these great ideas, and when we think about it, we laugh. I think about a car lot and they hire a new salesman, and the new salesman is two experienced salesmen are listening to the new salesman tell a customer, this car, I may have mentioned this before, drives a million miles to the gallon and it flies over traffic, and the two experienced salesmen run off laughing and tell the boss, we got to fire this idiot. This is Donald Trump. He's the new salesman. He's the guy telling the world he says we're gonna flatten Gaza, we're gonna make it beautiful, we're gonna build condos, and we're gonna move 2.6 million people to some other areas. And you just go back on history, back in the Reagan days when Israel invaded Beirut and they had to move 18,000 PLO soldiers, and nowhere in the Middle East were they willing to accept 18,000 Palestinian soldiers. Now we're going to find a place for 2.6 million Palestinians in the Middle East, and we're gonna come with lots of bulldozers, and we're gonna flatten the ground, and we're gonna build condos, and we even tried nation building in Iraq, which was just hilarious. We're gonna build a post office system and roads and schools, and every way which way we turned, they were blowing everything up we were doing every chance they got. And Tommy Franks, the general, said, "I'm retiring. I'm not taking part in this anymore." And it's just insane that this guy continues to build a bigger and bigger following. And that's my next question is, how did we get to this point?
Speaking of, where are our leaders? Where are the people that took the oath, like the Obamas and the Biden and the Clinton? Where are the generals, Milley, and where are those people that took this oath just because they're not president? Like, why aren't they coming out and saying, and calling out the bull crap and calling out this ludicrous plans that he has, finding, uh, everything in the budget they want to cut, and wanting to not fund Ukraine but fund Gaza. Like, well, I don't know why nobody has come out yet who is, like Obama. He was a liked president, I think. He may not have been perfect, especially on, on that side, but where is everybody? Like, nobody's spoken out.
There was literally a theory when
yeah. Well,
Obama.
I mean, I think there is some common thought on that. That this time around, I think there was. It's almost like an overreaction to not overreact. They don't want to make it like it was 2016, where everything he did, got an immediate and fire reaction from the other side. So in some sense, there seems to be the sensibility that we got to let him make a fool out of himself first. Now, I'm not saying that's the right idea, but that does seem to be the case. Because I mean, and yeah, you're absolutely right, Beth. I mean, it's been pretty pathetic. And when they have, I'll always remember this Chuck Schumer and one of the other just ancient people from Congress out there doing, like, they're outside, outside there in DC, and they're trying to do this little chant, and it's just so sad and low energy and old, and you just look at him like no one's getting fired up by you folks, man. They just don't have it right now. And the people that the people we want to hear from, right? It's like the next group, right? It's the Shapiros, it's the Whitmers. It's like those are the people we want to, and I think they will, right? I mean, it's going to get to a point quicker than we imagine, right? We're going to be thinking midterms already. Sadly, it appears that getting the Senate back is not even a possibility, which is really a bummer, just because of the way the calendar works out. So at best, it's flipping Congress. But I think at that point, you're going to see people start gearing up for 2028. And I think you're going to start hearing more from this deep bench that we always talk about having. But I agree with Beth. That bench has not had a word to say. And who we hear from is like old folks like Chuck Schumer, and that's just not doing anything for anyone.
Right.
No, we need to get, like you said, we need to get Josh. We need to. I mean, I guess you can't count on Obama no more. I feel like he's jaded for one reason or another. I feel like either he feels Democrats didn't appreciate him enough, or he's just done his thing and he's done. He's retired, and his wife is totally against politics, so he's accommodating her need to just live in peace.
I think he's got
Um,
kind of Hollywood too. Kind of enjoys that, you know.
I'm sure he does, and I'm sure he says, but we do need the next. What really happened here is, and we're talking about the next generation. That's why I'm finding my way into this segue. Is Biden should have never ran again. And he made it clear when he ran the first time he was running to pass the torch. I feel like Biden was reinvigorated by the results of the midterms. I mean, they really were stunning. Even though we didn't keep the House, the fact that they took it by one or two seats, that was had nothing to do. I like Biden's leadership as far as legislative, but nobody was positive on Biden running for a second term, and the Democrats should have squashed that. And then you would have had, just like you said, you would have had the Shapiros and then the Whitmers running for the nomination. And you would have really had identified a true Democratic candidate that would have shut down Trump once and for all. If he'd have lost, he was done.
Mm.
And this is again where Democrats are just professional at screwing the pooch. I mean, we've really missed an opportunity here. Trump did not win. Did not win with a giant mandate. I've told people you get to both candidates, the Democrat and Republican, get to 220 electoral votes. Then you've got the seven swing states. People are like, he won all seven swing states by 1%. Some of those swing states.
Yes.
This is not a mandate for the next. We missed Trump. This was just better the devil you know. We had Kamala come in for the last 90 days. It's impossible to assemble a, a, a campaign, a presidential campaign in 90 days. I mean, granted, she raised a lot of money, but there was not a lot to do with the money because, just keep beating. She wasn't putting out any policy initiatives. She was just keeping it quiet. And I thought she could win. I really thought she could pull it off. But in the end, it was the independents that said, we're going to go with Trump. At least we know what he stands for. And it sucks that we're in this position today.
Yeah, he did so much right out of the gate. It does make me wonder, uh, why if those like the executive order on the amendment aren't just more things to keep flooding the zone, well, to keep people sort of in a shock and awe state. You know what I mean? Like it does make me wonder what's going through his head when he says, and Charlie could be completely accurate when he's like, he really doesn't know what he wants or is doing. And it really is just the people around him doing all the deeds. But I don't want to get conspiratorial, but I wonder if there isn't something going behind the scenes that maybe we don't know about, like that's ever crossed your mind?
Behind in what area? Behind the scenes with
Meaning like
Democrat.
while we're waiting for these courts or these executive orders to go through the process, like a lot of damage can be done
Sure.
during that time. I mean, it takes a long time but do you think these other things like, like just the crazy insane things are ever covering up maybe something that's bigger going on behind the scenes? Like if we're not really following the Constitution and everything is executive orders, that I think we talked about last time, a congressman that was putting a bill up for the third, so he could have a third term. And
Yeah, if he
just
wasn't elected consecutively.
right, of like just crazy, but now, like with the Greenland thing and like the Hamas thing or the Gaza thing, like
You
these
mean red, white, and blue?
Red,
sorry.
white, and blue land. Red, white, and blue land.
Yeah, like what like they started off with a bang and then just shit just got silly. You know what
Here's
I mean?
my thing. Like some people will say, like, well, Trump is intentionally, he says these crazy things just to get people distracted while he's doing some even more insidious things. I think that's partly true, but I think it's just, I think that's actually who he is. And it's just playing into his benefit. Like the people around him allow him, not that they really have a choice, but to just come out and say these crazy things because there is the effect, this shock and awe, this constant confusion that, you know, makes it hard to pin down some of the worst things he's doing. But I like, it's like so many things in Trump. Every time someone talks about his political genius, I'm like, no. It just worked out that way. That a vile man with absolutely zero, you know, any type of sense of morality or
Right. He just laid off a bunch of the federal workers.
yeah, I mean, yeah, you know, anyone, he's so callous. He has actually really no humanity to him. So, you know, that does make him ineffective in effective ways, because he'll do things that other normal people wouldn't do because they actually have some semblance of a soul, you know. So
Well,
that makes him very effective, but it's not because it's some genius design. It just turns out that he's the person that works in this environment and has been successful at getting people, you know, just leaning on their anger and their, you know, to get them out to follow what he wants to do. I mean, he did it in 2 elections. You know?
yeah, he really is a vile.
It's an attention economy and it's a grievance agenda, and the two things accident. I feel like I said, I don't think he's a genius in anything. I think he's just a professional a-hole, and happens to be working for him. You know, it gives people the green light to be their own asshole to come out. You know?
Totally. I don't
People
think.
like that.
Sorry.
I said people like that, right? They like the green light to be an asshole.
Oh yeah.
To
They
be,
love it. Yeah.
you know, to be all about themselves and their own bottom line, and you know, it's kind of like the environment thing, right? Like, you know, most of what we're fighting for when it comes to environmental issues is not for our immediate benefit. You know, our immediate benefit is we could just say hell all, you know, juice up our economy, just live for today, and then, you know, we'll probably be gone by the time it gets so bad that it's completely perilous. But even that's not really true, because we're seeing the effects already, you know, regularly, yearly, huge events that can be tied to climate change. But it's easier and it's more immediately, you know, provides, you know, benefits to people to ignore that. And, you know, and just, uh-oh.
I'm
No,
back.
Anyway,
I'm
he
back.
would just love a world where just him, Xi, and Putin could just carve up their pieces, you know.
I'm back,
And
guys.
that's what he went there. That's what, you know, this talk about taking Canada as the 51st state and, you know, Greenland and everything. That's like this idea that we can go back to the, you know, a few world powers just carving up the world into their pieces, and he likes that. That's how he likes to see things. You know?
So what are the odds of us? What would we need to do as Democrats? We're all Democrats, right? What would we need to do as Democrats to minimize this in the midterms, to the point where you said, Charlie said just now, it looks unhopeful that we can retake the Senate. That's extremely concerning, because the Senate's how you get judges put in place. And so even if we don't stop Trump, if we could take back the Senate, we could stop the judges appointees. We could do like the Mitch McConnell did to Merrick Garland, you know, just say we're not confirming anybody at this point. We're not even hearing their voices. We're not inviting them on to have a hearing. But if we don't have them,
yeah, I mean, it's just somewhat realistic, but I really think it's kind of, we need something that's not completely in our control. Like, we learned from the first go around that, you know, scandal's not going to do it, because scandal's going to happen. It's going to come out. There's going to be horrible things that are going to come out. But we've seen that in the past, that he's able to deflect that with his base enough for it not to be a threat to him. He's not going to be impeached. That talk of that is just silly. So the only thing that swings it is, you know, and again, I'm not hoping for this. I want this to be a strong country. I want, you know, my life to be positive and you know, and abundant and things like that. But you know, it's going to take people really feeling it. You are seeing a little of that, right? You are starting to see people in red states now being affected by these funding freezes. You know, you're seeing it in, you know, a lot of the, you know, the research grants that are being taken away. You know, I saw, you know, what's the senator from Alabama? They're not Tuberville, but Britt, you know, trying to fight to save some of this money for University of Alabama. I mean, it's gonna require people actually feeling it, It's not going to be about some position that we're going to, rally the people behind on its own. It's going to have to be a reaction, somewhat like COVID, right? Had COVID not hit, he probably would have been reelected. Right? I think that's pretty safe.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But
so it'll require showing that he does not have the ability, once again, to handle crisis. I mean, maybe a second time around will be enough for people to be like, oh, wow, this really does affect me. I can't just, vote on my immediate feelings. I actually have to think about, the long term, like a year from now or a couple years from now. I mean, forget the next generation. We know people aren't willing to do that. But, even for your own benefit, just, I think it's going to require something like that. But it's not going to be scandal, and it's not going to be done by, him doing regular Trump things, because we've seen in the past it just doesn't work. And part of that is reason because we have this spineless, group of sycophants in Congress too, who, are not willing to defy him on any level. For the most, I mean, look at who they put in the cabinet. I mean, you're seeing it already. It's just, Hegseth especially, like, and I guess he's the one we're seeing a lot of now because what's going on over in Europe. But I mean, my God, how embarrassing that this guy is out there as the spokesman for like our entire defense, out there like spending, backing up Vance and criticizing, Europe for trying to stop hate speech and the reoccurrence of Nazism and things like that.
So we got, like, for example, my son gets his license in April. I'm literally going to buy a car this week, a brand new car from him this week, simply because on March 12th, I really believe he's going to implement tariffs that they're averaging are going to raise the price of new cars $6,200. The tariffs are going to, so would that be the thing that just crashes his credibility? Would that, when people can't buy cars anymore?
Yeah. No, it will, exactly. I mean, that's what I was getting to. It's going to have to be very clear connection to his policies and the pain people are feeling.
Right.
Like COVID. It can't be complicated. It can't be something that needs to be explained to him, because people don't have the attention span to hear anything that they don't want to hear. It has to be something specific, like tariffs equal higher prices, which we all know that. I mean, I say we all, like those people who can actually pay attention long enough to understand something, know that. But there's enough people who believed him when he says the most ridiculous things, like, the tariffs are going to be paid for by the countries that we impose the tariffs on. Like, that is the stupidest thing you could possibly even throw out there. And people actually believe it. Like, no, it's really clear. The tax, you can choose to buy from someone else sometimes. Sometimes you don't have a choice. And if you don't have a choice, that is purely just going to affect your bottom line, And there are a lot of things that you don't have a choice on that they're choosing to impose the tariffs on. And yeah, he's already starting the next round, like heavy.
Yeah.
March 12th. March 12th.
And I just don't understand his thing with tariffs. I really don't. But, it's kind of funny because he is an idiot. That could very well be his downfall. And it'll be completely of his own making, because that's his thing. This McKinley era tariff bullshit. I mean,
Well, that's just hilarious to me, because his spokesman, who I like to call President Musk, is often quoted as saying, we're going to feel the pain, but in the long term, it's going to pay off. And it's like, well, you're not going to feel the pain. You're not going to feel the difficulty of paying $6,200 additional for a new car.
Right.
And if you one of your 12 kids crashes their car and needs a replacement car, you're still not going to feel the pain. Yeah. But is that what it takes? Because if it is, I mean, if we get to this pain that's so severe, just like you said, that it really is, it's not like you've got to read into it. You've got to look at your IRA to realize you're not going to be able to retire for another year. It's really painful. You go to the grocery store and you literally have to decide. Now, I think every American that has a middle-income American can go to the grocery store and pick and choose a lot of different things. If you've really got to pick necessities, pasta versus meats, eggs versus other things, is that the pain that'll give us the power to at least take back the House and Senate? And granted, we'll never impeach him, but at least shut him down for the last 2 years of his presidency. And then ultimately, is there a chance we can identify how we got it so wrong? As Democrats, why have so many people given up on us? Have we really, I keep hearing about all these blatant wasteful spending, and I keep saying it's both parties that agree to it. But is it us really that's always going to take the burden for being the wasteful spenders when in fact we're not really always? We're in agreement. It's a collusion thing with both parties.
Well, I think the Democrats, one of two things has to happen, and I think the one that would be best is the least likely to happen. But it needs to be completely rebranded because, in ways that I think are mostly unfair, the Democrat name, the symbol, has become so toxic to so many people, certainly on the right, but also a lot in the middle. And if you can't rebrand, the better thing would be a new party that you take a lot of what's working in the Democratic Party and you create a new name, a new party. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, but I think that's the only that would be the best solution, because I think it's just so hard. It's become so toxic. They've done such a good job. The people in power own such a huge swath of the new media, so they can control that narrative. And they're going to keep doing that. They keep pumping that out. It's going to be very hard to escape, especially with that, that part we really haven't touched on much here, but I think it was a huge part of why we lost. The Democrats want to look so inward, and they just look silly doing it. But I think a big part of it is just, you go all the way back to the deregulation of news back with Reagan. I mean, that fully took force, with this world of Fox and OAN and news first, so many people getting their news in different ways than it ever was before. And so, because the traditional media is still speaking with a pretty clear voice. You can still get mostly, reliable news on the regular networks, but so many people aren't following that anymore. They're getting their news from their Google page or wherever, Twitter, or, Facebook. My wife is like that. She gets a lot of her news from like Facebook and things like that. She, other than what, she watches, because I have it on here all the time. So she's kind of become stuck with my dealing with everything that I watch and listen to. And it has changed her, really, her views on things, but she still falls into that kind of lazy thing about, just getting your news where it comes and not really taking the time to make sure you're getting, reliable sourced news. But that's not going to change. We have to find a way to use that to our benefit. It's not just going to go away. It's too powerful. I mean, look what happened with TikTok, right? I mean, that was like, that was like congressional mandate. I mean, a real congressional mandate, right? Over, I think it was like 80% voted to get rid of TikTok, and it was just like that. Just, Trump turned out. Oh, he liked him. He worked for him during the election. Boom, gone. Just gone. I mean, that'll be an interesting one if it gets back to the Supreme Court. A bunch of originalists who are going to have to like tie themselves in knots, explaining why it's okay to go against a congressional, not even just a law, but a mandate from Congress that this is dangerous for the country, based on the whim of one man.
Right.
Well, two men, Elon too. Speaking of, how funny was it to see his kid stand between him and Trump, picking his nose like
in the Oval Office?
The full video. That kid had his nose. He had like his knuckle up to like his.
He did too. On the
Trump looking at him and like trying to get away from him, like had such disdain for the kid.
He did. That was hilarious.
And how do you get to stand in the Oval Office with the president? I mean, really? And there's no, and like you said, the originalists and the conservatives who have no issue with this. I don't understand it.
Yeah, I mean, they told the president, "Shh, your mouth." The kid, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the kid's like on his shoulders too. It's not like he was just there and they were having a professional meeting. Like Musk is there trying to answer like, real serious questions with this kid, like monkeyed on his shoulders.
But who is Musk to answer questions?
Yeah, down is up, up is down. I mean, it is, like I said, it's still hard to believe sometimes what you're seeing in front of you. You're like, how did we get here so quickly?
Did you see the reporter ask Trump about what he thought of Musk being on the cover of Time on it, with the picture of Musk on the Resolute desk, and Trump with the,
Are they still in business?
Are they still in business?
A month after talking about how honored he was to be their man of the year.
2 weeks earlier, he was saying how honored he was to be their person of the year, and And then are they still in business? No, they went bankrupt 2 weeks after they named you Person of the Year, asshole. I mean, come
Well,
on.
but did you see the thing too? Again, this is you talk about like flooding the space with so much nonsense and bullshit and just crazy stuff that like in any other cycle, he was asked if he saw his vice president as his eventual successor. The guy was in line in the succession line, number 2, and he's like, no.
Nope.
Flat out, no. It's the vice president, man. Like any other president ever said that, we'd still be talking about being all over the place. And him, it's just like, oh, yeah, that's true. He's just an asshole.
What do you mean?
They consider it straightforward, and it's like, and how do you beat JD Vance and just sit back and allow that? How
That
do you
was my
not?
next thing to say. Like, how do you have such little pride? Like, you just,
I mean,
come
out and blast them for the comments. You can't fire the vice president. Trump learned that in his first term. He was outraged to hear you can't fire Pence.
Yeah.
You can't fire the vice president. He's an elected official. Has to come out, Vance. Show those redneck balls you have. Say something about it. But no, everything's okay. It's Trump.
Oh no, Trump will do it. Yeah.
I've never heard of such a thing in my life. I see. Well, we're seeing it for the first time, all of us. But just thinking about it and discussing it, it's just amazing to me that it literally carries on. And I just keep saying, how did the Democratic Party get it so wrong? And just like you said, we need to have to rebrand the Democratic Party, which is, I think, something we could do under somebody like Josh Shapiro. But the reason we get it so wrong is every time we have a success story, we hide behind it. I say the Affordable Care Act was a great piece of legislation. I don't think it should have ever, the acronym should have ever been the Affordable Care Act. I thought it should be the Available Care Act because it made care available to everyone. So if you say, you know what, screw this corporate job, I can't stand it no more, I'm going to go sell pretzels on the corner of the street, and your guy that's been sitting behind the desk for 10 years and you have diabetes and all kinds of other pre-existing conditions, you can still get insurance and you can carry on with your life the way you envisioned it without corporate, without having to be a part of a group plan. And why don't we talk about that as an option?
I mean, they do suck at branding. Like, that what was the name of he had like 2 huge pieces of legislation that I thought were great. 2 Biden had. But the first one, what did they call it? It was like the Inflation Reduction Act,
which was the Build Back Better, which was
Build Back was bad enough, but the Inflation Reduction Act, like, it was so obviously like, by naming it something that it clearly was not. You're like naming it after what you knew it was going to be criticized for. Like,
well, that was
if you name it the opposite, then they can't criticize it. Like, it was just a bad idea. It was,
it was a horrible idea. And the fact of the matter is they never took inflation serious, which is what brings down most presidencies is inflation. And they just figured it'd be short term. And then they said they underestimated the effects of COVID having supply chain issues and the supply chain issues carrying on into further along than it did. But they never did take inflation seriously. And like you said, to call it an IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, and it had nothing to do with inflation.
Well, just imagine if this egg crisis had been going on under a Democrat. I mean, it would be all day long, endlessly blathering on Fox News about how, oh my God, only if the Democrats have done this, only they could do this, where we have chicken, a dozen eggs is $12, or you can't get them at all. Nothing from this side. They don't hit him at all on it. It's like they're conceding that he says, well, he'll just say it's the effect of Biden, so we're just not even going to bother.
I thought before even he took office, he was like, no press briefings about the avian flu, not to even bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a pretty big deal for him. He was not going to go to that COVID crap again.
Oh, you talking about Biden?
No, Trump. Yeah, when he told no press briefings about the avian flu, not brought up. He was like pretty.
Well, but now he's got every reason to ignore it because the reality is right there in the grocery store, right?
Yeah, well, I just paid. You can't get eggs. They're like you couldn't get toilet paper.
Yeah. I just paid $7 for eggs at Aldi's, and it says only 2 dozen per person, which is fine because I've never paid $14 for eggs before. But it's, I mean, it's branding. It really is. It's branding. Democrat, you think about it.
Coconut Grove. This has nothing to do with that, but just in general about prices. I was at the Coconut Grove Art Festival yesterday, and a can of mediocre beer was $10.
Yeah.
One can of like not even
Right.
high end beer, and people were paying it.
Oh yeah. Oh, they'll pay it, and they're waiting on
But
the prosperity to come from Trump.
but you know the
And
thing is, when I do go to the grocery store with my wife, which I do as much as possible, because when she just goes and comes back with the bill, I'm always giving her shit until I go with her, and I'm like, oh, you really can't get shit for like you can't even fill a cart for less than like $200. Or you'll
right,
spend $250 and you get home and you're putting it away. And you're like, where the fuck is
Yeah.
spent like $250? Where's the food? Or we're back at the grocery store the next day, because all we got was like we got stuff for breakfast, but nothing for dinner. I mean, it is bad. I feel like an old man in the grocery store when I see like a bag of chips for like $8 or what. I'm bitching up and down the aisles like, oh my god, they charge this much.
What kind of chips are you eating, Charlie? $8 for a bag of chips?
Yeah, there were like it was a Super Bowl special, and it was
Oh,
they were doing like BOGO, and I'm like, it wasn't quite $8. It was like $7.70 something for like a bag of Ruffles that
yeah.
said like party size, but it wasn't. It was like the old regular size. Now it was 2 for 1, so in the end, it was like you're almost paying old prices of like.
Oh, right.
But the actual price, if you wanted 8 bag without the buy one get one free, was almost $8 for
that's insane.
Fortunately, I don't eat a lot of potato chips.
That is insane. And
You
a
can tell
beer,
I
10
eat
bucks?
$10 for a freaking beer at a festival, and
Yeah, not even like I said, not even a good beer.
and now it's not an issue. Inflation's no longer an issue because it's Trump's in the office. It's like it's like you said, it's all branding. When I remember when gas had climbed during the first days of Biden's administration, and there was stickers on the gas pumps. Biden did that. And who created that momentum? I don't know if it was just Trump supporters or if it was the Republican Party, because if it was, they did a good job. But what's funny about that whole story is that, basically gas prices are a president's report card. We're the most auto-intensive country in the world, and gas prices are the president's report card. So Biden's either heard about those stickers or just reacted to the issue of high gas prices. He sent his energy secretary and transportation secretary to Houston and said we got to come to a conclusion. And they approved more drilling permits than any other administration in history. But yet Republicans, and that's fact. And like you said, it takes time to really know that. So most Americans would never know that. But Republicans come out with this branding, drill baby drill, from an illiterate woman that ran for vice president 30 years ago, and they're still using the line. And it's like, yeah, we're gonna fix the gas prices and this we're gonna be able to produce our own energy because the president says drill baby drill. And it's like, is that all it takes, is just branding to get our party back on its feet?
I think it's part of the equation.
I think Biden got a lot of shit for that gas. But if you remember, right after COVID, or right before Biden took office, didn't Trump have an agreement with OPEC where they would cut oil production so that the money they lost during COVID they could make that profit back? Does anybody remember?
I don't remember, but I'm sure if he did, that it would never be published. But if Biden made that promise, it would be published, and it would be made clear that it was all his. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they do what they do. I just want to get back to basics, and I don't know how to. Don't know
Well,
how.
I think one possible hopeful sign is if you think about everything he's done in this first month, right? Everything he's done of note has been completely for his base, like just his base, right? Because obviously he's done nothing with prices. He's done nothing that across the line people care about. He's only been doing like red meat stuff for the base, like even stuff he knows is going to be turned away in the courts, like birthright citizenship or the immigration stuff's already running into huge problems. But he hasn't done anything that really got him over, to win the election. I just saw this morning, he's down 30 points with Gen Zers in the latest poll, 30 points from like a month ago. So there is some hope that he is so narrow-minded, and his group around him, of just focusing on like basically your Trump rally type people, that I think it may come back to bite him sooner than they realize, because really they've done absolutely nothing for people in this first month. It's all just image. It's all Chiron related bullshit that doesn't really do anything. And the immigration thing's already hitting huge problems. They have nowhere to put these people. They're starting to shove them in federal prisons that are already maxing out. They don't have the money. They can't use Gitmo the way they thought they were going to be able to. The courts are going to, put the kibosh on that really quickly because there's enough recent precedent from, just from the whole Bush administration.
Well, keep in mind, Gitmo at its highest point had 800 prisoners, 870 prisoners at its highest peak.
And that's
okay. He throws
nothing.
out this number, 30,000.
Yeah.
Guantanamo Bay. First of all, your average federal prison doesn't even have more than 12. It's hard to control prisoners. You can't have one facility with 30,000 prisoners. It doesn't even matter if you have 30,000 staff members to do it. You wouldn't be able to control 30,000 prisoners. But he's also saying that ICE is going to be the one that's running. I mean, the whole thing, my point is the whole suggestion is asinine. And we go back to the car salesman that says this car gets 1 million miles to the gallon and flies over traffic. But people believe his bullshit. It's like the whole Guantanamo Bay thing, one piece of his mouth, one piece of his agenda is asinine. Like you said, Obama in his 8-year reign deported 1.8 million people based on the fact that they were criminals, that they were not productive citizens. They were not doing anything for the United States positive. He deported 1.8 million. No fanfare, no grandiose standing up with his crazy ass Homeland Security guy and says, yeah, we don't have to separate families. We could just deport them all, the whole family. Okay, great. You made this comment and everybody loved it, but you're an idiot and you're not effective. But his base thinks he's so effective.
Yeah, no, the base is never going to change. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I think, we're wasting our time thinking that anything's going to bring his base to the other side or to reality in general. But his base is still less than 40%. So, the hope is it's that other 15, 20% available. That's the only hope. But speaking of, did you guys see the video that was released of that taco truck? I think it was in Memphis, and the company released the video. I mean, there's these 3 guys, and I think they probably were illegal, but they're working to set up this taco truck. I guess this is in the morning. It looks like they're prepping for the day. And the company that owns it later released the video to the media just so people would see what's happening here. But you see outside the truck, all of a sudden, this one older white dude just comes on, complete civilian clothes. And then, like, one by one, you see more and more. It turns out to be like 5 or 6 of them just kind of like coming out of the woods, approaching this place. No uniforms whatsoever. Then it cuts to the inside where these guys are prepping. They go in there, they start asking the questions. Again, no uniforms, no badges, never announce who they are, never say who they are, no warrants, nothing. Just like 6 older, husky white dudes who eventually take these guys away. Gone. No one's heard from them since.
Don't they have to have ICE on there?
What's that?
Are they supposed to wear that they're ICE?
Sure.
Or DEA or whatever they are.
I mean, you have to show who you are, like under what authority you're taking someone from their job. You can't just go in there. So these guys could have been, they could have been just civilians. They could have been people, I think it finally came out that they were, they were either ICE or some, under some umbrella of that. But the fact that they just walked in there, grabbed these 3 dudes without giving them any explanation, just they were asking the question, do you have these papers? Do you have this, that? And then just take them away. And from my last I heard, they haven't even been heard from. Like, they can't even track down where they are. Or I saw this other one in Georgia where this guy's at church with his wife and 2 daughters. No criminal record. Gets taken. They put him in a federal prison 150 miles away. So his wife can't even visit him. Again, like zero due process. And you think about that, a guy at church with his daughter and his wife, his 2 daughters. I mean, those are little kids. The daddies got taken away for reasons they have no idea why. And they can't even visit them because it's too far. It's just so gross. And that stuff is going to start. It'll start turning the page.
Well,
and hopefully it'll happen faster than.
I hope it happens real fast because, that's heartbreaking.
It is. It's just awful. And again, I do get the idea. I understand, like, you can name them, you call them whatever you want. Like, yes, if you're in here illegally, you're in here illegally and you have broken the law. Okay. That's, that is factual. But it's also just completely ridiculous the way they're going about this because it's not real. It's not sustainable. You know, so all it is inflicting just unneeded pain on people. You know, and again, it goes back to that the cruelty is the point thing that they did first go around. You know, I mean, that's really what it is. You know, because where people like us see that are horrified. You know, there's that base of his sees that and they're erect. You know, they just love that shit. You know, it's a turn on.
The argument was though that what the base was excited about was they saw those videos of the migrants who were being held up in that hotel in New York, and they were given cell phones and they were given like a food card or something, and that's what they were upset. They didn't want to have to fund these people in that hotel. But we're not talking about ICE going to this hotel and taking these people out, and so we're not funding them again. We're talking about taking people out of their homes, off the streets, and then putting them in a prison where we pay for their shelter, their food. You know what I mean? So like the whole point of taking the migrants off the street is now null and void because we have to pay for them to eat in prison. So they're basically they doesn't get it or they don't care. But it's going to start some kind of vigilante where citizens are going to start going to migrants asking for papers and stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's already going on. I'm sure that's good, especially in places like Texas.
Oh yeah, volunteers, vigilantes.
That's going on already.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's a bounty in my state. Like if it's like $1,000 per migrant.
Is it really?
Yes.
But you know, you don't have to really understand the economy or agriculture. I certainly don't to any great extent. But you just have to be living in this country long enough, and certainly worked in the food industry like we all have. I mean, if he could snap his fingers like Thanos and do what he says he wants to do, our complete agricultural system would collapse. It would collapse. We would go into a massive recession bordering on possibly depression. You know, we would not be able to feed this country, you know, because there's no replacement plan in place there. You know, it's like, yeah, whether here illegally, that's it. Well, no, but it's not it because we built an economy on their backs. So, you know, whether illegal or not, we were complicit in this. And he's already seeing that backlash because you know, the people lots of businessmen are Trump supporters in this belief that it won't affect me. He'll overlook it with me because, you know, and to some extent he will try to do that, right? He will try to favor as much as he can because he's always done it. He's, you know, he's transactional in that way. That's how he thinks everything operates. But my God, I mean, you know,
why do I
take the workforce out of the equation? Yeah, you know.
I mean, I'm just hoping, truthfully, I mean, I am willing to pay the price, and I don't know what the price is, but if it finally shuts down this whole Trumpism once and for all, and like you said, nothing will reduce the amount of dedicated supporters of his. Those guys that are 100% him will be 100% him today. They'll be 100% him 2 years from now, no matter what the consequence.
Sure.
But we got to get to the point where the other 60, we got 40%, like you said, it's 40% Trump, 40% Democrats. It was the undecided that gave him the victory in 2024. We've got to get the undecided, the whole undecided, that whole 20% on our side. But maybe we've also got to be more realistic about our approach and our branding because we've got some issues. You know, when Obama, we've got some issues. When Obama was president, he was, for the most part, very popular amongst Democrats. We lost 1,000 seats in local governments across the country during that 8 years. So they've kept their eye on the micro. They've kept their eye on the macro when they've had the opportunity, and we seem to lose focus every turn, every inch of the way. We're not. We haven't. I want Josh Shapiro to come out of the woodwork and start talking about this whole Trumpism thing, and I want, you know, who's the other one we were talking about just a minute ago?
Whitmer.
Whitmer, yeah. I want these people to. We need a new generation of Democrats.
But going back to what you were saying earlier, it needs to be unapologetic leadership because that's what they have on their side. Now, whether you want to call what Trump's doing as leadership, I don't. Yes. But it's certainly unapologetic, and in that level, it works for him. And you know, the Democrats are just not designed that way. You know, they're not. They're always like looking over their shoulder and you know, and trying to quibble to make everyone happy rather than just saying like, this is the position, we're not going to apologize for it, and just stick with that until it works. But they just waffle, you know, and really that's, you know, I really liked Harris as a candidate, What I don't like is candidate. I like Harris. But as a candidate, that was her issue too. She just waffled on everything. She wasn't willing to take a stand, especially against anything that went wrong in the administration. I mean, that was certainly a big part of her downfall, right? It goes back to the whole concept of the view of what would you have done differently? Nothing. All right, election over. This is a change. You've got to embrace. You got to be fully in, because Trump is never, he's just, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier, that I don't think there's any genius to it. I think this is who he's designed as a person, and it's worked in this environment of never saying you're wrong. I mean, to anything, I guess you could, if you want to say the genius to it, it'd be, Roy Cohn. But the training of never saying you're wrong, always doubling down.
Yeah.
For us intelligent people, we see that and we go, God, that's just imbecilic and childlike. Well, yeah, but you know what? It's working.
It is working.
It'll continue to work in this country because we're not getting smarter. Our attention spans aren't getting longer. It's quite obviously going the other way. And we can sit there and bemoan that, as I'm sure we all do privately and publicly. But at the end of the day, it's still happening. And so if you want to get your country back, you're going to have to find a way to reach people where they're at. And, and if where they're at is freaking TikTok or X or whatever, I mean, you got no choice, because that's, that you got to get to them that way. You're not going to get to them through traditional means anymore. It's just not happening. They showed that in that last election. It's not working.
Well, bemoaning it is what. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying, like, for celebrity endorsement, that thing, like they showed like the weakness of that as well. It looks so, and it got me into it too. Like during the Democratic convention, I was so fired up. I'm like, oh, this looks great. We look great. Everyone's so fired up. We've got all these high level celebrities and politicians. And meaningless. It came down to like the gas station and the grocery store.
But I think we're thinking the Democrats failed somewhere. But when Kamala Harris was announced as the candidate, Democrats got behind her and rallied her immediately. I don't think that the Democrats failed somewhere or missed a step. I think you kind of nailed it, Charlie, when you're saying they're always trying to appease. You have to remember that when Trump came out, truth was not an option. Like he would say whatever needed to be said to get you on his side. So the Democrats were, wanting to be, they would be embarrassed. Their face would be red if you would catch them doing that Lindsey Graham crap, or, you know what I'm saying? So if people don't care if they're lied to, then I say, yeah, play dirty, play nasty. But I don't think it's necessarily a failure on the Democrat side, but we're too, like Charlie said, too afraid or not wanting to be strong enough. You have to show strength, or we're not going to have a country anymore.
The lesson that should have been learned right when it happened, if you go back to it, was when those comments first came out, about grabbing women. What was the name of that show? I forget the program that was on there.
Extra? No.
I don't know the name of the show, but I do remember that.
But anyway, when that happened, when that first thing, right, and the immediate reaction was like people within his own party are calling him to drop out. It was over, everything, I thought, all right, this is it. He's done. Should have been, right? And they were able to blow that off by calling it locker room talk.
Yep.
And it worked. And I feel like, the opposition just looked at it as like a one-time thing, not seeing like, wait, there's something really different going on here. And we clearly can't go by this playbook of decency, because they're able to brush decency off with bullshit like, oh, it's locker room talk. And when you've got, even right up to his wife, having, going on record and her saying, oh, no, it's just boys being boys. I mean, there's just no level of self-awareness or there's, that should have been, people should have taken that as a lesson. Like, we got a different game going on here. If that is not going to take you down as a Republican, then, we got to have a different play. What that is, I don't think we figured out yet.
Well, when you say bemoaning it, conservatives call it liberal tears. I'm not crying. I'm just saying, how do we take the pages from their book and use them? Because I'm almost at the point where it's not Trump's personal or salacious behavior that bothers me. It's his policies. It's his executive orders. We just need to take the keys back to the family car and drive it on a straight and narrow road and show the world, show the country we are driving it on a straight and narrow road. Our objective is not to run it in a ditch like the Trump administration, because that's all he's doing. And if it takes pain for people to realize that, I'm willing to suffer that pain. But we got to come up with an end game to this whole, because the concern is now they're building up his son. I think I just saw him on America's Got Talent. And I mean, I don't want to see another Trump after this one's 84 years old and worse and more invigorated.
Well, the last person and I wasn't a Bernie bro, but he's the last politician we've had anything close to that. Like, that's what we need. We need like a Bernie Sanders, someone who's like willing to take the arrows of the branding of being called a socialist and all these things and just blowing it off the way he does and just staying on his message. His message has never changed. He probably would have beaten Trump in 2000.
He not only had the effect of the ability to beat Trump. If Hillary Clinton would have just brought him on as her vice president, they would have beaten Trump. Yeah. He had an incredible attachment to 12 million young people. He had a list. Democrats have asked him for that list numerous times, and he said, "You can buy a $40,000 bike and still not win the Tour de France. You don't need my list. You need me."
Yeah.
And the Democrats never took him serious, to the point where they screwed him out of the nomination, gave it to Hillary, and he was gracious enough to say, "Yeah, of course I would accept the VP nomination." And they couldn't even do that.
Yeah.
And it's like, again, I don't think we screwed up on policy. I think we screwed up on message. We didn't have to be in this position starting with Hillary winning. As much as I didn't like her as a person, nobody likes Trump as a person. Even conservatives will say that, but she would have been such a better option than Trump. We could have won if she would have just went along and took Bernie on. And again, that's where we missed an opportunity.
But she wasn't the right messenger either, though.
Not at all. But we could have
pulled the right messenger. So
Bernie was the right messenger.
Maybe it's someone like AOC. I mean, if we really get to the point where we can actually like put someone and we're willing to take, like I said, to take the arrows that are going to come from his base, no matter who we put up there, right? That's the thing too. It doesn't matter who we put up there. It's going to be the same play from them. They're all going to be, marked a socialist and other ridiculous things that don't really apply to reality. So you might as well take the most charismatic person who's willing to stay on message and willing to take that chance. Hopefully someone will emerge, and I think, maybe it is Shapiro, hopefully. And maybe they will get more vocal. Yeah. But yeah, not someone who's going to try to be the next Hillary or even Bill Clinton or even Barack Obama, to be honest, He was pretty good on the road.
I would love to see Shapiro come out. I think he's got I think he could be the next. I mean, he needs to realize he needs to be unapologetic. He needs to realize he needs to be like Trump. And we can put this whole Trumpism behind us.
And can we do it with a woman? Is a good question too. Is this country are we so ingrained with sexism in this country that, like, I didn't believe that. My wife the whole time, she was like, the entire time she's like, "Oh, she's never going to win. This country's not going to elect a woman." She's like, "They are not going to elect a woman."
Well, your wife is right.
Now, who am I to argue with a woman who's been living this for like 53 years?
I agree.
So, and that's a sad thing to say, but in the end of the day, like, does it happen? And if that's the case, then that's the case. Then if we to write the shit, if it has to be a man, if it has to be, whatever messenger is going to work, it's a sad state of affairs if that's the case. Considering we'll be like the last country in the developed world that seem to get the head out of their ass when it comes to men and women. But
I don't think Kamala Harris's issue was she was a woman. I think her issue was she had 90 days to do a job that takes 2 years.
No, but I think like I said, I think a lot of men, like you included, obviously, and me included, would say that a lot of women who I know who have the same political beliefs of me would not agree with you. They'll say, "No, I'm telling you, that's a big." See, there's Beth right there. It's like that's a big part of it.
It is.
It is sexism is alive and well. If anything, it's gone backwards in the last few years.
I agree. And
I just hope in my lifetime we see a woman president. I would love to see whether she gets reelected or not, I would love to see how she does things because I believe they have a lot to offer. I've always believed women are better leaders than men. I mean, we all worked for Sandra. She was the best manager I've ever worked for, and we had 100 men around us. And I just know women can do it. I don't know if America's ready for it. I sure as hell am.
And I'm saying I don't think we are. And I also think same thing when it came to like Buttigieg. Like that guy is such a polished speaker. I mean, you got so many good things, but we're definitely not ready for a gay president. Not even close. Not even close. I mean, just what you lose with the male black vote alone would make that like a non-starter. You know,
Which is actually odd.
You know
but
what's so ironic about that is Tim Cook is the only or one of the only openly gay CEOs of the most valuable company in the world. He's done
I
an
think you mean
incredible
I think you mean Tim Apple.
Tim
Come on,
Tim Cook.
it's Tim Apple.
Tim Apple. So
Yeah.
they even say he took Apple from being a boutique style business to being a major, the most valuable company in the world. I mean, every business is now going to Apple systems because of him. So as far as gay, as far as women, yes, I agree with you both. America's not ready for it, but if they would pull their head out of their ass and realize that these people have a lot to offer, whomever they are.
Yeah. Oh no, without a doubt. I mean, again, see, in business, business is bottom line, right? People are gonna,
Nope,
it's much different than politics, right?
nobody questioned it.
Yeah.
I think once the boomers have cycled out, sort of, and they're not in such a large uh, percent of the vote, I think it's a better chance for women.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was my hope in this last go around, and
I was so hopeful that it would be her. I was so hopeful. Or, even if it was the one who ran for the nomination against Trump. The hell was her name? Nikki
Nikki
Haley.
Haley. Yeah.
I really thought she could if she could have got the nomination, I really thought I thought she'd have been a good president. She was
Oh, I would have been fine with her. I mean, I don't agree with a lot or most of her policies, but I would have been fine. Like I wouldn't be so concerned about the future of the country. I might disagree with policy, but I thought she was an adult, rational, and intelligent woman. Yeah.
well, what I think a woman could bring to the table is, and this is what happens in America every 4 to 8 years, is we switch gears faster than the Yamaha. We change up the course. We had Biden and his agenda. Now Trump is reversing everything. And my guess is that a Democrat will prevail in the next election. And they're going to take, which I don't see Trump accomplishing anything. But the point is we change everything every 4 to 8 years. If we literally had a woman with a steadfast approach and a logical approach, we would probably continue on that approach to some extent. And America would be better off just for that reason, that we're not just reversing everything we did the last 4 years.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the positive things about all these sweeping changes being made by executive order. The good thing about that is it's immediately reversible.
Immediately.
Like he hasn't gotten anything codified in Congress, and he most likely will not be able to. Right?
He won't.
Razor thin majority. They're completely dysfunctional. So nothing's gonna. There's gonna be no new laws of consequence. I don't think in the next 4 years. And so if all he can do is bluster and do executive orders, at least to that extent. Now I know the damage is going to take years to reverse, but the policy will take the first day to reverse.
Right, you can reverse it all.
Exactly what he did.
Yeah.
Well, the only other crash and burn you got upcoming is the next CR, which comes up in March, a continued resolution. Yeah. If there's no Democratic votes, there's no getting it through Congress.
And there's not going to be. And it goes back to what you're saying. Like you wonder if there's something else going on there. I think that's a big thing that they're just kind of waiting on as well. And I don't think the Republicans believe it or expect it. And I'm not sure if I believe it yet. That they've got the guts to really do that. To say like this is the hill we're going to die on here. We're going to let you can do all your things. We're not going to make that much of a fuss yet. But we're going to get to this point. You're going to see that we know your weakness, and your weakness is you can't govern, and you can't govern without our help. And so if they really stick together and force that, and get over the fact, so afraid that it's going to be blamed on them, and then they're going to be labeled obstructionists. Like, no, this is your last shot to slow this guy down, and to make and at least get them to believing that you're serious about this fight. And I think they will.
I certainly hope so, because they need to play, just like I said, they need to play out of the book he's playing out of, and they need to say to Mike Johnson don't count on us for anything.
Oh, and they never look weaker than when it gets focused on Congress, right? And especially Johnson. That's when they are at their worst, their weakest, and there's nothing they can do about it because they can't govern. They can't govern themselves, and they certainly can't govern this country. So if the focus goes on that, I think that's the beginning to start dismantling this horror show that's happening in front of our eyes.
If I hear of one Democrat vote when it comes to the next continued resolution, the Republicans have one vote majority in the House. So even not even taking into consideration the common cold.
No, it's more than one, isn't it? I thought it was.
No, because some of the people he's pulled out of there to work in the White House have not been replaced in special elections yet. I think we're still at one. We will be at one. I believe I could be. I have to look at it. Don't quote me. I believe we're at one, but whatever it is, they can't do it without Democrat votes, and Democrats need to realize they better not vote along Republican lines. We have not agreed with President Trump on anything he's done in his first 30 days. We don't agree with him on anything, so there is no reason to agree with him on the next continued resolution.
I agree.
Let the country default.
Yeah, I agree.
And then you can be clear. You can be sure that the onus will be perceived to be the Republicans.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I mean that we know that. Like that's been proven. That it doesn't matter. You can bluster all you want. You can get on there and scream and yell on your paid for news stations. The country's always going to blame the party in power. Always.
And that's that. That is our one. Silver bullet. That is our one. We need to. One single Democrat votes along lines with, and they need to be. We need to. What do they call it? Primary that one single vote that they talk about.
And they would have had that vote in the bag if they didn't make their mole the director of national intelligence. She would have been that vote. Her Manchin.
Well, she. It's just fascinating that she's the director of national intelligence when in fact the only ace in the hole she had for any reason to believe she was fit for that position was Syria, and Syria's fallen. So
was she confirmed yet?
Yes.
I mean, I knew she was going. I knew it was like a fait accompli, but I wasn't
sure
she was
confirmed.
So she's
her RFC,
right?
Robert Kennedy, RFK, whatever. RFK.
I know RFK was. Yeah, that's just another thing.
And I think Kash Patel's been confirmed at this point.
They've all been confirmed. That's why you guys were talking last time, like, this person, and I thought he's gonna get everything he wants.
Yeah,
he got it, and it's Kash Patel is probably the most dangerous of them all because
yes, I agree. I absolutely agree with that.
There was always an assumption there's 3 branches of government. Now we're down to 2. And I'm just concerned about that we have judicial and executive on one page,
and we barely have the judicial.
But I just think, my feeling is whoever's resigning shouldn't be resigning. My feeling is whoever's resigning should be staying on. And Sassoon, the conservative who just resigned, she should have just not done what the Trump administration asked him or her. I don't know if he's a woman or she shouldn't have done what they asked her to do. But she's a conservative, Heritage Foundation conservative that said, "Screw you, Trump."
Yeah, I mean, some of them do have principles. Even some people with wild ideas, or wild in my opinion, or vile in some respect, but some of them actually do have principles, that they adhere to. There's just not that many of them.
Well, I've seen even principles in Gorsuch. I've seen even principles in Kavanaugh. I've certainly seen principles in Amy Coney Barrett.
Oh yeah, no.
The only two who are sickening is Alito and Clarence Thomas.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I think Kavanaugh's pretty close.
Well, he's jaded like Clarence Thomas, but here and there he votes on our side. Clarence Thomas has been a consistent. They say he sleeps when the oral arguments are happening. Yeah. They say he literally stares at the ceiling and sleeps when the oral arguments are happening. I mean, that's for 30 years now he's done it.
Yeah, sure.
They're pretty convinced he's sleeping and when he's staring at the ceiling. So Guys, this has been incredible. And the only reason I say that is because I got to get Eli lunch because my wife is in Fort Lauderdale. But I would love to continue it. We have to do it again.
Yeah, whatever. Always cool.
This is incredible. Everything we do. I think I sent you both. Or I may not. Have I emailed you guys the new stats from YouTube that we're getting a lot more followers, a lot more view time, not necessarily followers with you guys.
You talk, hey, I watch your videos, and even when they're not of us, I watched when I told you, hey, that was a good one. I watched the one where you were talking about the homeowners insurance, and I was like, yeah, no, I feel that. I still have a home in Florida. It's been doubled. It's like 6,000, I think. It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. Well, we revamped this whole thing because we were just doing a conservative, liberal bashing try, and we just revamped it to the point where, just like we said, we're gonna get past the divides and the assumptions, and we're gonna bridge those divides. We're gonna do more and more of that. That's what I want to do. Is like I said, I want to make the Democratic Party great again. I mean,
The Gulf of America. Oh yes.
the red, white, and blue. What is it?
Red, white, and blue land.
I went on my phone like that just that next day just to see if it was really true, and I pulled up my maps thing. And it's just like, oh
He's a child.
God.
That's what I mean. Like just the I can't imagine it's ludicrous. The most absurd thing you can come up with will be his next great invention.
Yeah. It's like having an 11 or 12-year-old boy. Like you make a movie out of it. Like suddenly, like they switch bodies and he gets to be president. Like that is his mindset. It really is. It's that level. It's not infantile. It's adolescent, young adolescent. Before they start evolving towards adulthood.
Right, before puberty.
Early adolescence.
Pre-puberty. I mean, can you imagine, seeing as he loves Kim Jong-un and he loves Putin? I mean, I'll just ask every conservative, if any watches us, can you imagine Putin or Kim Jong-un in their Oval Office, in their main office, with the cameras rolling, and an oligarch standing next to him speaking on their behalf with their 3-year-old child picking his freaking nose? I mean, if you wanna admire somebody, just imagine, would they do this? Would they allow this? And then I guess in order to stop him from picking his nose, he picked him up and put him on his shoulders. So that probably made him feel like, I got to keep my nose picked hands on my dad's head so I don't fall off his shoulders. So I mean, I just can't. It's just hilarious, and they call it liberal tears. It's like, I'm not crying. The man's making an idiot of himself, and I'm just pointing it out. And you're saying I'm complaining about it. I don't care. He routinely makes an idiot of himself, and it's just incredible to me that you don't see it. Is all I'm saying. That you don't acknowledge it.
Yeah.
But all right, guys.
Well, it's been fun. Let's do it again.
Let's do it. Yes, that's my. Yeah, please. Let's do it again. And whoever's listening, like, share, subscribe, comment. Tell us everything you feel. Tell us if we're right or wrong. There's a lot of content here to really.
Tell us we're wrong. I want to hear the wrong.
I want to hear. Shut us all down. Prove us wrong. Tell us how great Trump is.
Conspiracy theories. I want to hear what's going on in the background. That's what I want to know.
Oh, I got it. I got
it. Okay.
All right, guys.
All right. Good seeing you guys.
Thank you so much. I appreciate this always. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Have a good rest of your weekend.
You too. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, guys.